Good morning, this is Rabbi Shlomo Furst here, Yeshiva Samanashi, Yerushalayim here, Kodesh. We're located on Rehov Zikron Yaakov number 6 in the Chanukah Yeshiva's Beit Knesset, not too far from the central bus station, so you're able to walk here, bus if you like, drive certainly, and if you're coming from Chutz La'aretz, please join us for a shirim as well. We'd like to see you here and join us with our learning. Okay, we're going to continue with Pirkei Avos. We had started yesterday with the Rav Bartanura. Let's just review the Rav Bartanura yesterday on the Moshe Kibul Torah Sinai. Moshe the Yeshua is the kingdom of the Nevi'im. The Nevi'im Moshe Anshe Knesses Hagadola. So on that, the Anshe Knesses Hagadola, the Rav Bartanura says as follows. Lauren, you'd like to read that over for us, please?
Anshe Knesses Hagadola?
Yeah.
Anshe Knesses Hagadola, men of the Great Assembly. Ne'ev Esrim Zikanim, 120 elders there were. Zerubbabel, Soroya, Raloya, Mordechai Bilshan, Shahayi B'mei Ezra, Sha'alu Min Hagola B'Bayasheni. These were among those who went up with Ezra, who returned from Ezra after to build Bayasheni. Miklalim, and included with them were Haggai, Zechariah Malachi, Nehemiah ben Hachaliah, V'Chavreim, were Haggai, Zechariah Malachi, Nehemiah, and their Chaverim. These were Knesset Hagadola. It's called Knesset Hagadola. Shvi.
Okay, that's a whole other topic. Why they call it? That's good. Okay, so the point that we're trying to work on now is because the very beginning of the Hezbollah, the Rabbi Nura, Anshe Knesset Hagadola, the Meir ve'Esrim Zikanim Payim. Now, the Mishnah itself said that the Moshe was Kibul Torah Sinai, Moshe Yeshua is the Zikanim, Seim Levim, and the Levim were Moshe Anshe Knesset Hagadola. So the word Zikanim, right? Basically, I think we can understand it, and that's what we're going to come into. There's a specific connotation of Zikanim, and then there's the generic connotation of Zikanim. Mm-hmm. So I think the Rabbi Nura saying that Zikanim mean the elders of that generation. But they're also the elders that were there that received the Torah from Yehoshua, right? As look at the previous Rabbi Bartanura in Zikanim, that there are a few lines there.
The Zikanim to the Zikanim, Sharichu Yemei Achrei Yehoshua. So they lived after Yehoshua. They were alive and they lived after Yehoshua, so they had also received it from him. Yosam Hazikanim, these are the Zikanim. The Zikanim Macherim.
Right,
and these elders pass it on to other elders. Until you get to the period of Nevi'im, Shehain Elia Cohen, Shmuel HaRamasi. This is when Elia Cohen and Shmuel HaRamasi were there.
Okay, so you see that there was a Caning there, and the truth is this expression that the Rabbi Bartanura writes is Harichu Yamim Achrei Yehoshua is based on a pasuk. We'll take a look in Rabbeinu Yonah. You have to go back to the beginning of this sefer here. We have Rabbeinu Yonah, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's on the first page. That's line. Yehoshua is a Caning.
Yehoshua passes Zikanim, of course, in the pasuk says in Yehoshua, V'chol Yemei HaZikanim Asher Harichu Yomim Achrei Yehoshua. And all the days of the Zikanim that were lengthened after the days of Yehoshua.
Right. So that's a pasuk in Yehoshua to the end. There's Kaf Daled, right? Kaf Daled Lamed Aleph.
Not so
sure. A second. Come in. Sure. Good morning. Coming through.
So a penguin walked by. I don't know what's happening. So it's cold outside.
Winter is cold. Yeah, take that one. The small one is. You just learned Rabbeinu Yonah that Yeshua, here, take that circle there. The first page there on the Avos.
In the back, right?
No, front.
We reviewed the Rav Bartanura.
Alright.
I'll discuss it in a moment. One second, this is, okay, one second, I've got to get the other one. Oh, good morning. Okay, very good, we're all here. Now you take the, thank you, sir.
How you doing?
What's the story?
Baruch Hashem, everything's good.
You take the same name because your brother did this.
That's my brother, that's right. I stole it from him.
He always walks
My
around
original one, I have to say the truth, my original, I really stole it from him. And then I started to like them, and then I...
Same meaning. Maybe you're the mishpachah to it's happening with the feather. Very nice.
Okay, let me catch everybody else up. We're holding out in Pirkei Avos, Moshe Kibbutz Torah Messina, and Moshe Yeshua, Yeshua L'Zakanim, right? And then the Zakanim were Moshe L'Neviim, and the Neviim were Moshe L'Anshe Knesset Gedolah. So the Rav Bartanura explained that the Anshe Knesset were consisted of 120 Zakanim, and there were Neviim amongst them as well. So, nevertheless, if you take a look at the Rabbeinu Yonah right over here on the bottom of the first page, right, the last line, Rabbeinu Yonah, very last line. So Rabbeinu Yonah says, Yeshua Zakanim, Kemoshe Nemar, it's a pasuk in Yehoshua, V'chol Yomei HaZakanim Asher Arichu Yomim Achri Yehoshua. The Rav Bartanura also mentioned that. So these were the Zakanim that Yeshua gave it over to, were the Zakanim that were in his generation.
The old timers.
Yeah, and they were Ma'arich Yom. They actually outlived Yoshua, right? So that's actually a pasuk as it's pointed here, that the pasuk says as follows: V'yavdu Yisrael es Hashem kol yemei Yoshua. The Jews served the Kadosh Baruch Hu the whole lifetime of Yeshua, the kol yemei Zakanim, and the whole lifetime of the Zakanim, Asher Arichu Yamim after Yeshua, that those Zakanim who lived after Yeshua, right? V'asher Yodu es kol Ma'aseh Hashem, they knew, those Zakanim knew the Ma'aseh Hashem, Asher Asu Yisrael, that Hashem did for the Jewish people. I mean, take us out of Mitzrayim and Matan Torah, right? So the transfer of the Torah that was Yeshua was Moshe that had gotten from Moshe Rabbeinu, he gave to those Zakanim, and those were specifically the Zakanim, right, that knew the Ma'aseh Hashem. They were there, right? They saw what happened in Mitzrayim and what happened in Har Sinai, right? And they outlived Yoshua, and they then passed it over on to other Zakanim in that door and other generations. Take a look now to Rashi's Pshat. Okay, Rashi's Pshat, Yoshua L'Zakanim. Have it there? Abraham, you like to read that for us? Yoshua L'Zakanim? In Rashi.
Yeshua ben Nun,
It's the first wide line.
First page.
Oh, you take, okay.
Yeah, take what's in
Sorry, thank you.
Here's the one. You take one.
No,
I got all these. I got
Yeshua L'Zakanim.
Yeah, good.
The Lord Masra L'Shivim Zakanim, and he didn't want to pass on to the seven skin Shayu bin Moshe with the time of Moshe. Elam Masra L'Zakanim Shayu Yodim V'Shochim Israel. He passed on to the Zakanim who were the leaders and the police of over Israel. And Moshe Nemar, V'Yavdu Ha'am Et Hashem Kol Yemei Yoshua. The people served Hashem all the days of Yeshua. V'Chol Yemei HaZakanim Asher Yichu Yamim Acharei Yeshua. And all the elders who had long life after Yeshua. Uzkenim Halalu Masru L'Chol Zakanim Shayu B'Chol Dovadar. These elders passed it on to all the other elders of later generations. They're forever. Kemole Atniel, Vatniel Le'ehud Ushar Shotrim. It's like a Atniel Ushar Shotrim. like they passed at Neil to Ehud, and the rest of the judges that were after him. Eli HaKohen Shmuel Haramati, until it came to the nevuah of Eli HaKohen and Shmuel Haramati, Sheken Katab HaMishnah, as written in the Mishnah.
Okay, very good. Now, so in these two things we see from this Rashi. Number one, an amazing statement. Lo ratza l'mosel yeshivim zikanim shayu b'mei Moshe. He didn't want to give to the zikanim that were in the time of Moshe. Okay, that Rashi's not explaining, but we'll have to try and find out about that. Why that might have been. Ela mosel zikanim sharodim v'shotrim al Yisrael. They were the zikanim who were the rodim. They were the supervisors and the policemen over Klal Yisrael, as it says in the pasuk, right? And these zikanim, they were Mosher L'Kol Zikni Hayu B'Kol Dor. They were the ones who gave it over to all the zikanim that came in all the following generations, right? And it finally came to Lansel, Ehud, V'Asher Shoftim, and Hayu Achra, all the way Ad Shigil Nevuas Eli HaKohen V'Shmuel Ramasi, until it came to the time of Nevuah, which began with Eli and Shmuel Ramasi, which, by the way, the Rav Bartanur also mentioned that, right? So, and many times you should know the Rav Bartanur goes very times along with Rashi. He may sometimes add and things and maybe shorten things, but many times he'll go very often with Rashi.
And could I ask, what was the reason that they didn't want to give it to the 70 elders? I mean, they had already probably received it from Moshe at that time.
Okay, remember, the generation from 20 to 60 died
Right.
in the desert. So the elders at the times of Moshe were 60 at the time they left Mitzrayim, and 100 at the time they got into Israel. They weren't going to be around much longer. So what he's saying is that he didn't pay, since that generation, those elders were at least 100 at that point. We're not going to be, weren't going to be around much longer. They took the elders of the next generation. It was really the elders of the next generation who were going to be around for years. And that's why Yeshua wanted to give it to them, because they were going to be the people who were going to be there.
But did Moshe give it to these elders? I mean, there were the 70 elders who were with Moshe. So did Moshe already give it to them? So
Okay, so as we understand, meaning everyone really was Makabel Torah from Moshe. Meaning everyone who lived in the Doradea, everyone was taught, as Rashi brings down, Moshe would receive the commandments from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He'd say it to Aaron would sit on his right, his sons would come in, and his sons would say it over, right? And then finally the Zakanim would come in, hear it from the sons of Aaron, and the Zakanim would tell it over to Klal Yisrael. So they all heard that, right? Now, so everyone...
Mesgeret was small then. They took him to a big Mesgeret.
Yeah.
So it's much bigger than the story.
Well,
So
it's everyone's... There's no limit in terms of how many Zakanim should they have, right? I mean, those were the Shivim Zakanim who had the Nevuah, right? As Laura mentioned very well, that they were like at the end, and they needed obviously those who could extend that Masorah as long as possible.
No,
maybe that's the reason. We'll have to check and see.
I understand that. It seems like he skipped over them.
Well,
the way it's mentioned, seems like he skipped over.
Because Moshe was worried about the transmission. Yeshua was worried about the transmission after him. The Zakanim from Moshe's time. Yeshua was like, I have to pass it over. The Zakanim who was left, they're they weren't going to live very long at that point.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, but there's still something which is not clear to me yet. When we're talking about the Torah that was Makabel by Moshe by Sinai, and it was Moshe Yeshua, meaning what exactly was it? What was unique about what Moshe gave over to Yeshua, and what was unique that Yeshua gave over to the Zakanim, and then that was unique that they gave over to the Nevi'im? Meaning, there had to be something unique besides simply learning and being taught the Torah. Meaning because everyone, as I said, learned the Torah from Moshe Rabbeinu.
They were the ones that we could trust to pass it over the right way, and not people to change what they have wanted to add in it. Probably because they were the ones who, we have one Torah that everybody follows in the Mishnah, right? And every Torah was based on that Torah.
Right.
And these people were trusted by the person above to pass it on without any changes or
So-
there, that's what I.
So no, it's very good. As perhaps a proof to what you want to say, if you look at the first Rashi on it's actually the second one. We start with the first Rashi and go into the second. Why was Yeshua picked? But we did this Rashi. But it's worthwhile seeing again. Moshe Kibbutz Torah Messina. Go ahead. I mean, he's asking a question. It was really taught to everybody. That's what we were really. What was unique about what's going on here?
Moshe wrote the shir on that day. Why did he give it to Yeshua?
Well, it's a little bit different. Well, Lama Ne'emar, why is it said that it was mostly Yeshua? Meaning, when we're learning, we always have to remember a very big cloud. When you're learning Torah B'Ksav with Chumash, Gemara, Mishnayos, meaning there's what actually happened, right? And there's what is Torah. Right? What is Torah? Meaning, I'll just take my separations, right? What actually happened? I don't know. That doesn't bother me. What actually happened, right? The Torah, what the Torah is telling me, I have to learn. I have to understand as Torah, right? Likewise, what happened at the, for example, when Yeshua was fighting with Amalek, right? What actually happened? I don't need to know all the details. Torah doesn't know all the details. I have to know what the Torah tells me. Right? Gemara, when I'm learning Gemara, right? The Gemara says, I've mentioned this many times, that Reish Lakish would, every statement that Rabbi Yochanan would make, Reish Lakish would ask 24 kashas and he would get 24 terusim, right? Not once in Shas have I ever seen a full explanation of all the 24 kashas and all the 20 terusim. You know how big Shas would be if that would be the case? Right? So, a lot took place, which we don't need to know. I mean, sometimes you find out through Midrashim what happened, things like this, right? through other Meforshim, right? So therefore, there are a lot of things which are happening. So what it says here, what is the Mishnah telling us? When the Mishnah is being written this way, I mean, it could be that everyone's makabel, right? We were all makabel Torah Messina from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? Right? We weren't in the same aspect of Moshe Rabbeinu, 40 days and 40 nights on Sinai and things like that. We were all makabel Torah at that time, right? When the Mishnah is telling us, what the Mishnah is telling us is that Torah that Moshe Rabbeinu was makabel from Sinai, that was given over, and it's telling us that it was given. What's it teaching us by telling us there was a Masorah to Yeshua? I mean, why is the Mishnah singling Yeshua, right, to tell us that was the Masorah that Moshe Rabbeinu gave to Yeshua? And it could be that there were a lot of specific things that took place, and that's why it's also.
What film looks like and things like that.
Yeah, but everyone knew what tefillin. Not only can't say this, that's what Rashi says in the very beginning, right? V'lam the Makol Yisrael. The Torah was taught to everyone. Everyone knew what tefillin was. Everyone knew Yisrael was. Yeah, but they came in and they heard it from Zakeni. Right, correct. Right, that's right.
That's not story. That's
yeah.
Moshe Rabbeinu is Moshe Rabbeinu. Yeshua, this is Moshe Rabbeinu. Yeshua is Yeshua. So it's given to teach everybody how to put on tefillin, what's the tefillin, what's everything.
Exactly. By the way, I just thought in that Hishnalshus that Moshe Rabbeinu received it from Hashem, Aaron came in, then his sons came in. Where's Yeshua? Yeshua wasn't in that setup.
Yeshua comes in with the Zakena.
He came with, if he was one of the Zakeni, he came with the Zakeni.
He's one of the awesome.
Or he might have been in the oil. That we'll see the next Rashi. He never left the oil.
He might have been there listening to everybody repeat one after the other.
Right, he didn't have to come.
That's
he was
right,
already there.
He's never left, right? The whole concept he never left is that he always.
Moshe Rabbeinu.
Yeah, he was this. Look at the next Rashi. Continue. Why is the Mishnah telling us? That's what we have to know. Why? Meaning the exact transmission, whatever it was. Like, we weren't there, but what the Mishnah tells us is what we have to know. That we're taught that it was given over to Yeshua. We understand why is the Mishnah telling us it was specifically given over to Yeshua.
Not to Lazar, to Pinchas, to the seven elders who gave nevuah in the camp.
And this is, he actually reinforces what he says later on. He says specifically not to give it to those decaying. Because
because he only wanted to pass it on to somebody who had the will to, from his young age, who learned, I guess he learned Torah from his young age.
Right.
The Kana Shem Tov Alom, and he had a good name in this world. V'zeu Yeshua, this is what Yeshua Shenema, Yeshua binu nar, lo yamish mitoch ha'ol. Yeshua was a lad, and he did not leave the tent. Ve'af al pi shekatav al Pinchas, even though the Torah says about Pinchas, Torah emet hayta befiu, the true Torah was in his mouth, the Gomer. So it's even though he still only he gave it to Yeshua. Yeshua the Zikanim, go on.
Yeah.
The Lord Salam Mashal Shim Zikanim. We want to give to the same Zikashay. You b'mei Moshe. Ela Masal Zikanim Shayu Rodim v'Shotim al Yisrael. He gave it to the Zikanim who were leaders and police officers over Israel. To Moshe Neymar. Vayavdu et Hashem koyim Yeshua. The people served Hashem always in Yeshua. And all the days of the Zikanim that were there after Yoshua. And these are the elders who were chosen to pass it on to every generation. Atniel Lehud, Ushara Shoftim, from Atniel to Ehud to the prophets that were after him. Until it arrived to the prophecy of Eli Cohen and Shmuel Haramati. So even though they passed it on, and even though Eli was a Navi, he's not considered one of the transmitters, because from them, Shmuel was the next transmitter, because he was the next Navi. But Eli doesn't seem to be, even though he was a Kohen Gadol, and I understand that, but according to what we're learning, he wasn't picked as one of the transmitters.
But as the Zikanim, no, but perhaps as one of the Nevi'im, yes. I mean, it could have, because the Zikanim gave it over, that's what I think was saying.
So why 200 years, am I right? This is about 200 years to Shmuel?
Shoftim.
To Eli, to Shmuel is about 200 years, right? To get to Shoftim, to get to...
Shoftim takes 200 years.
Yeah.
Right. Shoftim's 200
Right.
years.
So for 200 years, he's the Kohen Gadol, and he's not considered the leader to pass it on until we come to after all the...
Wait a minute. Eli Cohen isn't the Kohen Gadol. No.
Eli was Pinchas, right?
Maybe, I'm not sure. I don't know. I'd have to look at. No, it could. I have to.
I read it somewhere. I'm sorry.
It could be. It could be. No, because it's not so question because that was the way with Yiftach. By Yiftach, Pinchas was the sheriff at the time. Yiftach, and he didn't come, so I'm not sure.
Okay.
So that was after Eliyahu. Look, there could be ways of saying maybe but
okay, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But even though Pinchas was at that time, and he still wasn't considered one of the Nevi'im. So even though Pinchas has a great name,
right,
and even though he saved Klal Yisrael, so to speak, right, and he still wasn't considered one of the 13
right.
So it's a very big thing to.
So I think what we can say that the Rashi says that Moshe Rabbeinu's criteria for Yeshua was two things basically, right? Shelo Ratza Moshe Elam Nisha Hayamemis Atzmo Minurav Oleachach, meaning person was devoted to Torah from the very early time in his life, and also Konashem Tov Labon, which has a good reputation.
So there was only one person that filled that criteria. That's interesting.
The thing is, the question is, could Moshe Rabbeinu have given it over to more than one person, or was Yeshua the one and only person that was fit for that?
Or maybe only the best.
Because we see after Yeshua he gave it over to Zikanim.
You don't want to have a group of people because they have different opinions, right?
Well, but Yeshua did pass it over to a group.
At that point, maybe
I'm wondering, it's just like, that first transition, you limit the dispersal ratio to give a truer, kind of get the whole thing really set.
It wouldn't be worthwhile making two different leaders at the same time.
Right. So for Moshe to Yeshua, it was like a direct, and it really got set in stone at that point. And then there was a long enough period of time there that Yeshua was teaching it, that it really got settled in everybody, and he could get the Zakanim to all understand it. Because he had the time to do it, to get them to understand it the way it needed to be understood, and then at that point, they were able to as a group, to pass it on.
Although when it comes to the beginning of the Nevi'im, see, it seems like the Zakanim, they were a group, right? They were a group, as Rashi says, Ela Moshe Zakanim Shayarodim. Okay, and then it said, right, at the very Zakanim, the last couple of lines of that Rashi, Zakanim Halalu, and these Zakanim that Yeshua had given over to, Moshe Lekol Zakanim Shaya Bekol Doror, and all the Zakanim that was in each and every generation. And they named a couple of specific ones, right? But whether that was limited to only those, right? I'm not sure. But then once it became Nevuah, it really was that Eliah Cohen was the first, and then Shmuel, and like that was it. Unless there were there could have been minor Nevi'im as well, but because we know in the time of the bias, at least there were many Nevi'im, and during Malachim, and so it could have been even in the time of Shmuel there were other Nevi'im. I mean, we'll see, but we'll get to a reference to that later on, Mitzvah. So then let's just review now. Let's go now to the Nevi'im Moshe L'Anshin Knesses HaGedolah. We have, if I'm not mistaken, Rashi here. Right? Let's look at what Rashi says about that. We saw that what the Rav Bartanor taught us. Take a look at Rashi. Moshe, okay, go. Yeah, go ahead.
Passed from one to the other until they came to the Anshe Knesses HaGedolah. The Elohim, who are they?
So the Nevi'im would pass it from one to the next, right? And this was until it came to the Anshe Knesses HaGedolah.
Zerubbabel, Nehemiah, Saraya, Re'elia, Mordechai, Bilshan, Shayub Ezra. That were the times of Ezra. The Big Baishan at the time of the building of the second Bayit.
Right. That was specifically a time of when they came up from Babel at the time of Ezra, when they were rebuilding the second bias, right? So that they had still some Nevi'im, right? And they transferred it over to the Anshe Knesses HaGedolah.
What would they call the Anshe Knesses HaGedolah? Mefaret Masechet Yoma bePerek Valo Kohen Gadol. In Masechet Yoma and the Perek of the Kohen Gadol. Shehem Hayu Kenesiyah Gedolah Tisha, because they were a great assembly and holy assembly. Shehazir Ater Liyashna, that they returned the crown.
The Yasha to its initial state. Meaning, okay, the Rashi is going to explain it in a moment, but just to get a picture of what's going on here. There were 70 years in Babel, and now the time came with Ezra to come back to Yerushalayim and rebuild the base of Mikdash Sheni, and he brought with him those who wanted to come. Not everyone wanted to come with Ezra, right? And he was very upset about that. And but those that did come, amongst them were some Nevi'im and Zakanim, Nevi'im and Zakanim, and they formed the Anshe Knesses HaGedolah. Okay, and why now Rashi explains why they call the Anshe Knesses HaGedolah. What's so great about them? Shechaziro Atar Liyasher. They reinstated the crown, the reference to Kadosh Baruch Hu, to its original state. What does that mean? Rashi explains based on the Gemara. There's a Gemara in Yuma.
Tagan Yashan.
Meaning, what's Liyashra? Yashra.
I think that it was old. Kelomar la'atikim into the old days.
Meaning, as it originally was.
The Fisha Moshe Amar Hakel Hagadol Hagibor B'Hara, because Moshe said words, God the great, the big, the great, and the awesome. Ba Yirmiyah v'Daniel v'lo Amar Hagibor B'Hara. Yirmiyah came. And Daniel, and they didn't say Hagibor B'Hara. And they returned it to the days of old when they did say it.
Okay, one moment. Okay, so let's just explain this. It's a Gemara. Right, you were seeing the Gemara if you want to go into details about this. However, Moshe Rabbeinu, in reference to Kadosh Baruch Hu, used these four expressions: Hakel, Hagadol, Hagibor, V'Hanayra. Right, and Yirmiyah, who lived at the time of the Korban, if I'm not mistaken, he did not go to Golus. He remained here in Eretz Israel. He did not go to Golus, but he prophesied and tried to bring people to do tshuva and prevent the Korban. Yema, do you want to say something?
He went along with the Goyim.
Up to the Gavul, but I don't think he left.
He
He didn't have to. He went to the Gavul and then he returned back.
And he brought back some of them, I think.
Perhaps. Maybe it depends. I'd have to take a look at
Exactly.
it. Yeah. So, but Daniel, he was, if I'm not mistaken, born here in Eretz Israel in Yerushalayim, and he was taken as a young boy to Babel, and he was instated in the court of Nebuchadnezzar, right? And they had it difficult to say the words Gibor v'Noira. At the time of Gullus and the Churban, they had difficulty in saying the words Gibor and Noira in reference to Kadosh Baruch Hu, because it was the time of Churban and Gullus. So therefore, they were in a very big dilemma, Lamaisa, because obviously if a Kadosh Baruch Hu had what Moshe Rabbeinu said, Hakel, Hagadol, Hagibor, Hanoira in the Torah Kedosha, right? You can't simply just say that that's not going to be true anymore. That's if it's written in the Torah and it was said by Moshe Rabbeinu, that's a Kitzachim. It's always going to be true that Hashem is Hakel, Hagadol, Hagibor, Hanoira. The only point I think that we can say about Daniel and Yirmiyah was they honestly couldn't say that. Meaning, it's true, but that they understood in their situation, in the Matzah of Korban and Golas, they couldn't honestly say that. Meaning, it's true, and it was absolutely true, and they understand that in Has V'Shalom they would be choylek on Moshe Rabbeinu, because obviously they were the highest level of devotion and emunah and betachin and the Kadosh Baruch Hu and Torah's Moshe Rabbeinu. So they obviously couldn't be arguing on what Moshe Rabbeinu said. However, their meat of honesty, wouldn't allow their meanness of truth, of emes, wouldn't allow them to honestly say those words. So they were in a dilemma. So they couldn't say those words.
Some people went through this shoy, those said, no, they can't say about Habamis or Bahamas. It just doesn't go.
That's, sometimes it's no, it's a very big nisayon. It's a very big nisayon. It's all later. We shouldn't be in a situation. So their midas of emes didn't allow that. We saw the Rashi at the beginning of Parshas Vayeshev speaks about the Shifti Kar. Through their Gana, you see their spot. They couldn't say Shalom to Yosef since they didn't have a full Ava towards Yosef. They couldn't say Shalom to him. So you see, it betook their Ganai that they were Shalom with Yosef. They couldn't say Shalom to him because their meat of Avemis wouldn't allow them to say that. So you see their greatness, even though that they had this Chesoron. So in the same way, I think we can explain perhaps Yirmi and Daniel in the same way that they had difficulty saying Gibor B'Noira. Now, what did the Anshe Knesset of Gedolah come? They now gave us an insight in how HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in spite of Korban, in spite of Golas, that Hashem is still Gabor B'Noira. Let's see the finish of Rashi.
Because of the strength of Hashem. Because of this. How come one small nation can survive among many other great nations?
Right. So we're gonna have to stop now. We're gonna discuss this some more tomorrow. That I understand what happened here, but the Anshe Knesset Gedolah, from their perspective, meaning after they came out of Gullus, now that they're rebuilding the base of Mikdash, now they can say, oh, Am Yisrael is Mekayim, Hashem is Mekayim the Klal, so even amongst all the Goyim, after the Nisim of Purim, right, now they could say that, meaning when they came out of Gullus, but B'toch Gullus, Yirmiyah and Daniel, they couldn't say that. But now, in the state of renewal, then you could say that, because you see Limafreya that Hashem is taking care of Klal Yisrael. So maybe we'll discuss a bit more of that tomorrow.
Same thing post Shoya. No one believed the witness to come back.
I mean, if you talked 60 years ago to a person in Auschwitz and tell them I'll tell you what's going to be in Yerushalayim in 60 years from now. You say, you're either a prophet or crazy.
Yeah, they just thought, well, I think that continued davening a little bit, but they didn't really think,
Okay, Baruch Hashem takes care of us. Okay, we'll start the Mr. Bushi in a couple of minutes.